Welcome to the 8th session of Peaceful Mind Mentors. Been 2 months and we have amazing people with us joining. We are going live on Facebook with 10,000 people there and on YouTube as well. It's a working day, so we are just waiting for people to join in slowly. Today's guest, which we have with us, is Professor His Excellency Ivo Josipovic. He is the former president of the Republic of Croatia and wonderful human being. I have only known him 2 months and I have known him a lot about him. He's a composer, he teaches law, he's a professor of law. He has been awarded with medals, and you can see from the background of where he's sitting, he has some awards lined up there which he has got for compositions. Uh, and he has been writing a lot of compositions, around 70 compositions, and and he has promised me that he will send me a list of those compositions which we can listen. Typical European classic, if I'm not wrong. So welcome, sir, and it's really honor for us to have you from Europe, from the Balkans. And today's theme, what he's going to speak about, is how Balkans, Croatia, and the European Union is dealing with this global crisis. We all know that this pandemic has actually made a world a hostage right now. So we know from Europe, we get a lot of news that how Europe is now suffering this pandemic has actually created a lot of problem there. So, sir, let's start with you first of all. I'll go with first a very private question, if you don't mind answering. How I have asked you before, but I want people to know from you how law, politics, and music, how did they go side by side?
When I was very young, I was studying law and music. And my friend made jokes on me, telling that I'm bigamist. I have two loves, law and music. And later, much later, I had another love, that was politics. So definitely I spent different periods devoted specifically to one of three areas. And now, after my mandate, I'm trying to manage little by little all three areas, having, of course, most activities as law professor.
So, it was by plan that you got into politics, or it was like by sudden you got into politics and then you have to obviously leave your professorship and music career?
It happened suddenly because I was always active among social democrats, but I was always more professor than politician. And in one moment, then Prime Minister, Social Democrats, His Excellency Račan, asked me to join to the list to the parliament. And then I entered the parliament, and I was for 5 or 6 years in parliament. And then I got proposal to run for the president. I won those elections, and I was president for 5 years. But in my heart, I was always not primarily politician. I was composer and law professor.
Something which you like.
Yeah. So that is the reason I didn't want to use benefits of former president, and I decided to be back on university.
So, sir, is it true to say that you can leave politics, but politics cannot leave you? Is it true?
Yeah, definitely.
Yes. Okay. Yes. So coming to the main heading of today, how do you see leadership in Europe has dealt with this global pandemic, and how it has actually affected the European economy, how European Union is dealing with it, especially your country? So please enlighten us on that.
So it's very difficult. It's very difficult for many reasons. Firstly, Europeans are used to have better and better life and condition, and suddenly happened Corona, with really important impact on all economies. So our GDPs in all countries is going dramatically down. Especially countries like Croatia are touched very much because our main industry is tourism, and of course there is no tourism during Corona, or it's very poor, so we have important difficulties. And secondly, This crisis, especially Corona and economical crisis, showed some weaknesses of European Union. It showed that there are still big differences among members of European Union, and that there are no enough efficient structures to govern crises on proper level. So for me, this crisis sends a very, very important message, and the message can be read as: we need more Europe. We need more European decisions, common decisions, and more consensus about important issues. Now you can really recognize that even Corona crisis is not somehow dealt in European Union in the same manner. There are big differences in countries, and definitely the lesson we should learn from Corona crisis is that if Europe would like to be one of key players on a global scale, we should transform European Union in the way of United States of Europe. But definitely that will not happen soon, because there is one wording in Croatia that says it's better to be the first in the village than the second in the city. And unfortunately, the most of politicians are governed by this wording.
So the difficulty which the Europe has faced in this time of the global pandemic, it's because of leadership, you would say, or it's because of lack of...
No. Definitely there is no politician who can prevent Corona. It's much above our possibilities. But the Corona issue shows weaknesses of our structures in European Union, and shows what should be changed in those structures. But unfortunately, I don't think that decisive politicians can understand this message. That's the problem. Here in Croatia, we have another problem. We have a very important problem because the capital of Croatia, Zagreb, now I'm sitting here in my flat, was heavily touched by earthquake. And even my home was struck by earthquake, so the damages are relatively huge. And that also influences social life and economy. So we are now facing with very difficult moment in our history. Many people compare it with the war as well. You know that 30 years ago we had war, a very destructive war with many casualties, and probably that war put us to think more and more about European Union as a tool to avoid conflicts in the Balkans as a region. Because probably you can recall that First World War started here in Sarajevo in Bosnia and Herzegovina. All Balkan countries were involved in this. It was a very bloody war. Second World War was not only fight against Nazi, but it was somehow internal civil war between different political and ethnical groups here. And finally, we had the last war in Europe. It was also very, very important. Probably later I can show you maps to understand better what happened.
So this question I asked our previous guest also, because she was also talking about the same things, but she was giving it in Indian context. So how do you see that leadership now is evolving in the post-COVID or during the COVID time? How a leader should be and what leadership style he should adapt to?
It's not easy to anyone to be prime minister today, because definitely there is conflict of very important interests. One interest is to keep economy and to keep the standard employment, social stability of the country. And the second one is to keep population healthy. And unfortunately, those two interests are in contradiction. And there are different attempts from Swedish model, German model, or in one period, Croatian model was very successful, but unfortunately, now it looks that we are going back to Corona crisis, and it's very dangerous for such small country, especially country that is depending on tourism.
So just a question which I had in mind 2 days back. 2 days back, we had the change of the Prime Minister of France, if I'm not wrong. There was suddenly reshuffle. Is there a probable reason that people are saying that it's because of that he was not able to manage the coronavirus, something like that, or it was just like a normal reshuffle?
Definitely many politicians will suffer and their careers will suffer because of coronaviruses. Yesterday we had the parliamentary elections, but our prime minister won very convincingly. The second tendency in many European countries, including my country, is that right parties are stronger and stronger. Definitely the association can be that people need a hard hand to deal with corona issues. And in many European countries, far right, even far right parties are now stronger and stronger. Of course, I don't like it. I'm from the left, I'm social democrat. I'm worried for democracy, I'm worried for human rights, definitely. One of characteristics of Balkan and Balkan countries is strong nationalism. Strong nationalism was a trigger mechanism for past war. And that is the reason I think that center-left parties or liberal parties are better for development of society. But, you know, the final word is from the people on elections, and our right governing party won yesterday elections, and they're going to continue.
So the previous Prime Minister who was there, he's still continuing as the Prime Minister?
Yes, yes. And the Prime Minister is a relatively moderate politician. He's pro-European, that's good. But unfortunately, his party has many members that are very right and not always in favor of human rights.
So can you show us that slide which you got?
Yeah, probably some history. Let me try to connect.
Yes.
Share screen. Yeah, that's it. So, you see the title. The title is symbolic because there is kid here and signs of European Union. Yeah. Unfortunately, the kid here is to remember us that we become older and older society. Young generation is somehow suffering of depopulation of our country, especially Balkan countries are losing citizens. When I started, when Croatia became independent country, we had about 4.3 million or 4.4 million of inhabitants. For India, it's just one street. I can understand it. But for us, it was moderate country here in Europe. But now we have less than 4 million. That's for us very dangerous. The same tendencies in other neighboring countries, in Serbia, in Bosnia and Herzegovina, in Macedonia, in Slovenia. But you know, it's putting the question mark on our future. Economical, political, and so on. So what happened? Now I'll show you the map. Here is former Yugoslavia, those countries. All of them are now member of NATO, but not Kosovo, not Serbia, and not Bosnia and Herzegovina. In meanwhile, Macedonia and Montenegro became NATO member. But from this region, just Slovenia and Croatia are member of European Union. And especially liberal left politicians, including, of course, from Europe, we think that the Europe is not complete without all Balkan countries in the European Union. Why? Not only because there is now hole here on the map, but especially because historical experience that European Union was not primarily economical project, primarily it was peace project. So we consider membership in European Union as a tool to prevent all conflicts, especially military conflicts in the region. So for us, for many people in Croatia, it's very important to have all these countries, especially Serbia and Bosnia and Herzegovina, not only in European Union, but in NATO as well. But it's up to them, definitely. We cannot decide inside them. So this is former Yugoslavia. My grandmother lived here in Croatia. It was then part of Kingdom of Austrian-Hungarian Imperium. It was a very unique historical development. So my grandmother lived in Austro-Hungarian Imperium, and she switched to 7 states without moving from this small village. Hungarian Imperium, a state of Serbs, Croats, and Slovenians, then Kingdom of Yugoslavia, during the Second World War, Italy, then so-called independent state of Croatia. It was puppet state connected to Hitler and Mussolini, then in socialist Yugoslavia, and finally she died in the Republic of Croatia. I think this story shows how shaky is this area. Without moving from this small village, they switched 7 countries, 7 states. So ethnic composition of former Yugoslavia is very complicated. The biggest group were Serbs, then Croats, then called Muslims. Now they call themselves Bosniaks. It's very important. They changed their national identity, and then the others. But what's very important is the map. Look at how Bosnia and Herzegovina looks. It's so important mixture of different nations and religions. So definitely the main task for politicians in the region, in Balkans, is to keep peace. That's very important. That was the biggest issue of my mandate. And I think in my period, we had the best relations with our neighbors. Unfortunately, it's not the case now. So this map and problems of Balkans are really very nearly connected to idea of European Union. And that shows importance of European Union for us. Importance of multilateralism, importance of international institutions, UN, and of course European Union, because we see here in Croatia, in Slovenia, even people in Serbia, Montenegro, and the others, we see European Union as a tool to keep and to preserve everlasting peace. That's the most important task. Secondly, definitely, European Union is better frame for better economy. It's very visible from our case because we had quite important help, financial help to develop from European Union, because this part of Europe is the less developed part of Europe. So we hope that in some period we can have the standards similar to Austria, Italy, France, and the other countries. But today we are quite far away from this topic. So for now, it's enough for slides, and we can continue our talk upon your questions if you want.
Yes, just a second. So the question which I have now, you are saying that European Union is something which has been formed to maintain everlasting peace and development with all the European nations. How far do you think that has it achieved, or how
Definitely.
far to go?
Definitely, if you look European history, especially big European powers, I think Germany, France, Great Britain, then Netherlands, Spain, they were making war every 20, 30 years. It was disaster. History of Europe is history of wars, wars and wars and wars forever. But those countries who joined European Union never had war between each other, and that's very important. So the reason for me, especially for me, to vote to be member of European Union, I'm very proud because I signed the accession agreement between Croatia and European Union as a president. The main reason is peace, economy as well. But if there is no peace, there is no economy, there is no prosperity, culture, anything. So I consider the peace as the most important achievement of European Union.
That's true. Sir, we have a question from Mr. Satyam. He has been a regular attendee of all the webinars. What will be the major challenge and problems of our generation after COVID-19?
Definitely, the biggest problem for young generation will be employment and economical security, because prediction is that GDP will be cut from 30% to even more, 50, 60%. It's regression that we haven't had for many, many years. Just it can be compared by World War. And that's the biggest problem. Definitely, that problem generates also a problem of possible radicalization of politicians and politics and political parties. It was shown as well before the Second World War. It was very clear. It was big economical crisis, and then very destructive authoritarian forces started war as a tool to recover. Unfortunately, we know what were consequences of it. But we always says that historia est magistra vitae. That means the history is teaching us, but we are very bad pupils. We always says after any war, never again we are going to keep peace, so and so. But always we start new and new wars and conflicts. We always forget, even in one generation, we forget what war really means.
Sir, but you know, when even I have been reading about all these things, the economy breaking down, money is not coming in, and either it is going out, people are getting unemployed, etc., etc. The youth of today is actually into a lot of conflict, because we cannot blame for everything and anything to the government. You know, we just cannot keep on blaming the government, and the government is not doing anything. We also have to do something for ourselves. So what message do you have for these youth, especially, who are actually into a lot of conflict now?
I understand your question. Definitely, in any society, the government cannot do everything for all people. I think self-confidence, especially for young people, is very important, and those young people who are capable to run some private business have advantage. But unfortunately, we have to be realistic. Just small portion of population can run good and successful business. It's very important to understand that there are also many cultural and political differences in societies. I've been in India, not once, and I saw that everyone is doing some small thing, or everyone is trying to make something. In China now as well, but in some European countries, including my country, when there is tradition of a state taking care of social issues, trying to be fair for everyone, to obtain fair life for everyone, somehow there is tendency to be passive, to expect from the country, from the state, to help or to provide a working place or whatever. And definitely in time of crisis, it's not possible. But psychologically, people tend to blame someone. And who is to be blamed? Government, of course. So many governments are going to have a very hard periods, and many politicians. even suffering from those things they're not guilty for.
There is one question which has come up, sir. Is that true that you want to be a green president of Croatia? What does the term green president mean?
Oh, green. Yeah, I never declared myself as a green president, but I supported green economy. What does it mean? It's clean economy and turning to so-called fourth industrial revolution, clean sources of energy and transformation of economy, not only because of ecological reasons, but because of awareness that definitely industry, science are going to new direction. There is a definite good way for those countries who are taking care about good education, involvement of new technologies, and who care about development, sustainable development. From the other side, I think those countries who are not willing or not capable to accept new industries, new technologies, new science, in future they are going to become some kind of new colonies.
So basically now clean energy, green economy, clean presidents, clean prime ministers, everything is the way future. But
everything clean. Yes.
Everything clean. That's very true. Sir, I mean, I have asked you before, but I would like the people to also know about it. Would given a chance, would you run for presidency again, if given a chance?
No, because, you know, it's very hard to be back. It's very hard to be back. I enjoy my status of former president because many people remember my mandate as a good one. But circumstances were different and not very in favor myself on my second run for presidency. So I lost for 1.1%, something like that. And you know, the comeback is not easy. I think I can better serve as a former than as an actual president, especially in this period of crisis. But we'll see. You never says never, yeah.
You never say never yet. Yes.
Yeah.
And to all the audience, I mean, he's one of the persons whose motive in life is that any major challenge for any politician is to fight for peace, and they have to fight for peace. Sir, I want to ask a question here, and the last one before we wind up. We talk about peace everywhere, even in the UN, EU, AU, between countries. Then why is there no peace? We are working for it, we talk about it, but why there is nothing, no peace?
Because human beings are not perfect, because many people consider war as the best business. Yes, for many of them, the war is the best business in the world. And because some kind of primitivism and thoughts that we should govern the others, we should conquer, we should be rich on the others' expense. And this is a lesson from the whole history. Look at in your history, in my history, in my country, in different histories. Who are the most popular persons from the history? Big winners in the wars, in principle. If you ask French people who is the biggest French person, Napoleon. If you ask Greek people, who is the biggest? Alexander the Great. Yeah, so that's very, very tragic for human being. Yeah, of course, in my countries, warriors are also celebrated, but then I always enter in some kind of polemic, telling that in Croatia, the most important politician in our history were people who changed Croatia towards modern European countries, especially in 19th century, when our national sentiment was formed and we started to become important European country and nation.
So, sir, what are the, sorry, again, a question just popped out. Sorry.
Yeah, okay.
What are the challenges which obviously the world will face, especially the Europe will has to face in the coming future, because this pandemic is not going to get over. And when we were talking with the Dr. David Nabarro, who is the WHO envoy for COVID-19, he said that there is a second wave which is going to come from the US and Europe again. So, what are the challenges and how we have to be prepared for it, as from your perspective?
So definitely when you see what's happening in the world, you can easily recognize that there are places on the map when big powers are having a chess game, very bloody chess game, like in Syria, like in Somalia or some other country. And I'm always very worried that they are going to decide to move this chessboard, as example, from Syria to Balkans. It can easily happen. It depends on their decision, their ambitions, or misunderstanding of societies here. And it's very important to have politicians on the board in all countries, especially small countries, devoted to multilateralism, negotiations, and idea of peace, because the war can be definitely tragic for everyone, especially for small nations. But unfortunately, as I told you, there are too many politicians building their political career, their economic power on the war. They consider really the war as the best business ever. Yeah. And that's a big disadvantage of global politics.
Is that notion going to change ever?
I haven't.
Is that notion of war is the best business going to change ever?
I'm not sure. I would like to see this, but definitely during my life, it will not happen.
It's quite difficult, sir, because many people talk peace, but there is no execution.
And you know, the world scene is very dynamic. Let's look what happened in international relations after last American elections, after Mr. Trump became the president. For many of us who has idea of multilateralism, of unity of the world, of global values, it was disaster, unfortunately. Now, who knows who will win next elections, and it can dramatically change the world map. Yeah.
Would you like to comment on about the next elections, the US elections, just going to happen in the
No, I cannot influence it. I can, of course, wish that such important and the biggest power in the world has someone who is reasonable and devoted to the peace and cooperation as a president, but it's up to Americans.
It's up to Americans. Fine, sir. So we wind up here, and just before we wind up, we have 3-4 things. Sir, we have one more initiative which is coming up, but we are going to announce it in October. I will send you the details of it. It's something relating to mental health. Of course, you're not from the field of mental health, but when you support peace and you support mental well-being, so we would like to have you on board. We have the former president of Mauritius who's going to be the patron of the organization. And I will send you all the details regarding that very soon. Next session we have on the 11th of July with the former Minister of Health from France, who is going to talk about public health and the union of public health she's building up to fight the COVID-19, and telling people that public health is more than just what we think. Before winding up, can we have a quick e-photograph with the former president? Naman, can you click, or Tanvi, can you click? Anybody can click. I don't have a phone.
How do I have to do something?
No, sir, you just have to smile. That's all.
Okay.
Tanvi, can you click? One more.
Okay.
Done? Fine, sir. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. I enjoy our conversation.
And hope to see you again very soon on our board. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, and see you on the 11th. Bye-bye. Stay safe.
Okay, bye-bye. Bye-bye.